We want to start off with a reminder that we are not doctors. Before you make any changes or try something new, always consult with your doctor and medical team first. Chronic illness can vary from patient to patient, so it's always best to consult with your own doctor for what is best for you.
Hello and welcome to IBD Determined. I'm your host, Mason Harvey, and I speak from the role of a patient, and I have Crohn's disease.
And I'm your other host, Michelle Harvey. I'm Mason's mom, and I speak in the role of a caregiver. And today's episode is going to be just kind of like a brief history on the first cases of like IBD that were documented and the start of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, because that is a huge development for this disease.
Sure, I know how the disease got its name.
Yes.
Because I did write about this.
Mason did a research paper.
But actually, in my last research paper, I think.
Yeah, you did. And so that's way more detailed than we need to go into on here. So
Yes.
Yeah, you got to do a lot more work for that. It was a lot of work.
That was a lot.
And so today what we're going to do is we're going to just get all of our information from the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, because this is about them today. And so you guys can do the same thing. And we will put a link in our description, or link at the end of this when we're done filming. We'll go ahead and put a link in there for you guys so you can take a look yourselves.
Yes.
And the reason why this was important is it's been about 4 years. Mason was still hospitalized at this time 4 years ago.
4 years ago, I was in a hospital right now.
Yeah,
It's
you're
crazy
still
to
there.
think.
And it was around that time we probably made our first contact with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. One of the first things I was recommended was the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. And then I got involved in social media groups and things like that to help. But I didn't know a whole lot about it. And it was nice to have a website I could go to that had
study about Crohn's.
Yeah, it had a lot of information on it. And
I don't think we understood that much at the time, how different it can be for everyone.
we didn't. I thought it was very cookie cutter. Like they knew it was caused by something. They couldn't cure it, but they could treat it. I didn't realize they really didn't know the cause or how it started in somebody or why. And so I think it led to more questions and more questions.
Especially when they're like, okay, we're going to put them on Remicade and let's just hope it works.
Yeah. And I was like, hope, like, isn't this like, this is going to be it? Like you give him this and he feels better. And so
no, that's not how
it is helpful to have this foundation and to join it. You can volunteer with them too, but I really encourage that because they're doing great things.
Yes.
And it also makes you feel a bit empowered, like you're able to do something. So
it's giving me my voice in the Crohn's world.
Yeah, we have a quote today. We're going to get to how it applies a little later on, but to me, it applies a lot to the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. And it's one of your favorite quotes.
This is one of my favorite quotes. So if you've ever read the Lorax, you may know that there's a Lorax movie, but there's a character called the Onceler. There's a quote that the Onceler says, and it says, "Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not." And I've always liked that.
And I think that like once you're diagnosed, it really applied towards a lot of things, because unless you care and you do something about it, nothing is going to change.
Yes.
And so I think this applies to kind of how the foundation started. And it's kind of funny that, this quote, it always keeps popping up and coming back. And I think it's just a great one. And Mason got the chance
to actually meet the Onceler.
The voice.
Yeah, the voice of the Onceler. I did not get to the actual one.
Some of you are like, that's a character.
I turned into an animation. I went to see the Onceler. No, I got to see the voice actor who voiced the Onceler in the movie in person.
Yeah.
And that was a very cool experience. He's very nice.
Good singer too.
Yeah, he is.
And guitar player.
And I can say the Onceler shook my hand.
Yeah, so you got to meet him.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was exciting because you wouldn't necessarily know who he is. A lot of you out there know who this actor is. He's very famous. He was in The Office also, but besides other movies, so he's been in a lot of stuff. But Mason, when you recognized his voice. And it's like, hey, anyways, kind of a cool thing. Yeah, that was a couple weeks ago that happened, and we were just at a event.
Crazy, it was a few weeks ago. Time flies.
Yeah, He was just hanging out, and it was pretty cool. So anyways, this quote pops up every once in a while in our life, and it's pretty exciting in ways it does. So let's get started. So we don't
go on to the video.
Don't prolong this any longer. Let's do this. So I hope this is informative for you guys. It's exciting for me to learn a little bit about it, because this popped in my head when you're writing your research paper, because I was like, I never really thought like how far back this went and when they figured it out. So Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, it did exist in history, but it was never diagnosed as IBD. It was always attributed to something else, or maybe a part of something else. They really had
no idea.
1875.
I remember that number.
So that's about the first time it was documented and labeled as its own disease.
The first time it was actually documented.
Right, that they made that connection that, you know what, they had previously attributed these symptoms to other things, and they started to realize that, hey, this is its own disease. And the symptoms that they were talking about in 1875 were consistent with ulcerative colitis.
Yes.
And so that is pretty interesting. And then 1932, that is when Crohn's disease was first described by
3 doctors.
There are 3 doctors, yeah.
And so you might tell where this is going with the names of the doctors. There's Dr. Burrell Crohn,
Leon Ginsberg.
Yeah, Leon Ginsberg, and Gordon D. Oppenheimer, which is interesting.
Yeah, another famous Oppenheimer in there. So yeah, those were the 3 doctors.
They both created something
that first described it. And the name they gave it was regional ileitis.
Regional ileitis.
Yeah. So that's what it was known as.
What Crohn's disease was before.
Yeah. And then it later, obviously, as we're all talking about here, and we know it became Crohn's disease, named after Dr. Crohn.
Yeah, Dr. Burrell Crohn.
Yeah. So,
and I guess this is why Crohn, that's his name, and Crohn, that's why there's always an apostrophe S, because it's his disease.
Right.
Crohn's disease.
Right. And so,
interesting.
Yeah. And it is interesting, because I think it wasn't here on the web. It wasn't here on the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, but when you studied it, it was said that it was not his idea to name it after him. So one of the other doctors actually did that.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he kept doing it jokingly in a way, and he didn't like it, but it stuck with it. And it stayed like that.
So I always thought, oh, wow, there's 3 doctors and he got it named after him. Yeah. But he didn't necessarily, it wasn't something he necessarily wanted. It could have been Ginsberg's or Oppenheimer's. So that's really interesting. But Crohn's is what stuck. Yeah. So after that point, though, so that was in 1932. But there were still many years that went by, and not any research really going on to figure out, what the causes are or what the treatments were for this.
It must have been really a really hard challenge, because as you know, it's still kind of new to the field today, and there's still so much that's not known about it.
Well, it's still really hard to diagnose today too. So imagine having, with all the technology we have now,
we have all these fancy little machines and stuff, and it's so challenging to find more about this disease.
Yeah.
Back then in 1932, and they don't have all the MRI machines like we have, or crazy things like that. They still were able to figure out that stuff, and
I think I'm guessing too, with the way that technology is and how we can do biopsies now and look at the pseudopolyps, and you can look at other things to really confirm it's Crohn's disease. Because I think for a while there, they would confuse it too. It was like, is it ulcerative colitis or is it Crohn's disease?
Ulcerative colitis or is it Crohn's disease?
Yeah. And so it was very important to come up with tests. I think that'd be a cool topic too. How the testing grew and how things changed, how it was diagnosed from the 1930s until now. How.
24?
Yeah. So it's interesting that something still takes a while, even though it was discovered so long ago.
Yeah.
Almost 100 years later, and it still is a little difficult, and people are still being misdiagnosed.
Yeah.
This is where we're going to get into how the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation got started. So this is like, more
I did not write a paper on this, so I will not know as much.
No. So, but jump in anytime you want if you see something here you want to talk about.
Okay.
So almost 20 years later, a lady named Suzanne Rosenthal began experiencing debilitating digestive issues. And she was misdiagnosed, and then she got worse because of that. didn't figure it out. They didn't know what it was. So she got worse. And then eventually they figured out it was Crohn's disease. And her husband, Erwin, was really frustrated. There was no cure at the time. And it didn't look like there was any effort to find one. And so it's interesting, right? Because they probably like, what did they do? Surgeries, just remove stuff, take out, and then it would come back, or
it just keeps coming back. You can't fix it with surgery.
Yeah. And I don't know how much was known about diet for those who experience it with that end of it. Or steroids. I'm not sure.
And back then, even if there was like a certain diet you were supposed to eat, I mean, this was 1956. It wasn't like that long ago.
Yeah.
It's in history. That's just a little snap.
Erwin reminds me of how we felt when you were diagnosed because.
Yeah, when I heard there wasn't a cure, I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
There isn't a cure.
Right.
Because you hear how there's diseases and they all have like cures and stuff.
Yeah.
Magnificent
Ways
cures.
to treat it.
You get Crohn's disease, you never heard of it before, and they're like, there's no cure for it. And you're like,
and when you know how awful it is, and you're probably thinking, I need to get relief from this. What do you mean?
Yeah.
It
like with how severe it is, and there isn't a cure.
Yeah. It's crazy. And it probably seems, especially for you being so young, it's like, oh my gosh. And so that's what this is interesting. So tying in like with your age, at the same time that Suzanne Rosenthal was going through this, there was a 13-year-old boy named Michael Modell. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm so sorry.
I think you did, but.
Yeah. And so he was struggling with similar symptoms like what Suzanne Rosenthal had. He was also eventually diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Both of these patients were at Mount Sinai in New York City. They are well known in the IBD world. These families both happened to be there. So they met and they wanted to do something more for this disease. There was no foundation at the time. So imagine back then in the smaller world where you didn't have the internet to even look this up. You relied on the circle you were in the hospital, the doctors. And so, you're like,
whole city.
It's crazy.
Town.
It actually, it would probably be very scary. I feel like it'd be very isolating. On September 12th, 1967, the Rosenthals, the Modells, and Dr. Henry Janowitz founded the National Foundation for Ileitis and Colitis. And so they recognized that there was a need to educate patients and provide resources to support these people. There needed to be funding for research.
What we're raising awareness for.
Yeah. And it's incredible to me that they took this step because it's hard enough when you have a diagnosis and it becomes kind of all consuming. And so to step out of that world and take on something this big is so admirable.
Yeah.
So it's incredible that this decision they made to be that unselfish and to do something to help others, what it's grown into and what it's done. So December 1967, they had a dinner dance that was held honoring Dr. Crohn, Dr. Ginsburg, and Dr. Oppenheimer. And the featured entertainer was Ella Fitzgerald.
Oh.
Yeah, which is incredible. So they continue to do those, which I believe now that would be like the gala.
Yeah, what we go to. So a dinner dance gala. Right. Okay, cool. That's so cool. Yeah.
So they have continued that tradition.
They do that little dinner and then they have the dance after.
So they've continued that. And it's one of the biggest fundraising evenings of the year. And so I thought that was kind of cool. I was like, wow, that's neat. And you've got to be a host for one of those.
Yeah, MC. Yeah.
MC.
So cool.
Yep. So with that, some questions on what does the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation do? They do a lot. We can't cover it all here, but we're going to
be here for a few days.
Yeah, we'll bore you guys with all that, but you can check out their website and see everything they do. But some of the things says, and these are from their website, they have funded more than $300 million into causes, treatments, and cures for Crohn's and colitis. So part of what that money has done is they funded research that discovered the importance of TNF and its role in IBD. So that's pretty amazing. So it led to groundbreaking biology therapies like infliximab, which is Remicade, and adalimumab, which is Humira.
So those are the two originals, Humira and Remicade. Do you hear more that Remicade was the original over Humira?
Because Humira is the injection.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to be the first. That's a little more work.
Crazy because Crohn's disease, as you probably know, if you've watched us for a while, you know that it's so different for everyone. I've already said it's different for everyone in this podcast. I'm not sure. but it is different for everyone. And like for me, Remicade didn't work for me, but Entyvio and Stelara did. And so if back then, if you just had Remicade and Humira, oh, that's so great that you have these new biologics, but it may not work for some certain people.
Well, and hopefully that gives some of you hope out there, because if you were in that era where it was just Remicade and Humira as the early options, you would have thought that they failed you when you took these and thought, oh my gosh, I can't be treated for Crohn's. And so some people responded really well to these and did great, and others didn't. But what that should tell you is nowadays, with all the new medications being researched,
there's a lot now compared to the just two they had.
And so even if you're taking some right now and it doesn't work out, just keep in mind there's more down the road and there's others to try. Way more options now for you guys than there was previously. And so because Remicade was groundbreaking at the time, it was a huge deal and it saved a lot of lives. And so it just continues to do so. So let that give you guys hope. And so that's
more good ones.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. Something else too, they have supported the research that went into discovering the NOD2, which is the first gene identified as relevant for Crohn's disease. So, and they launched the Genetics Initiative, and that's helped identify 215 genes susceptible to developing IBD. Wow. So again, these aren't, so what's incredible is, I mean, again, these aren't all the answers, but it's like we said in our other episode when we were talking about the other IBD breakthrough, is that all of these are these little puzzle pieces that go into this big puzzle, and you got to keep researching, you got to keep doing this, because you may find a little bit of the answer and someone else may find a little bit of the answer over here, and you put them together and you're going to have the full answer. So you got to find all these little things. It's super important. So all of it adds up.
Like in the beginning, if you have one puzzle piece, what are you going to do with it?
Right.
But then
it doesn't mean much.
At the very end, if you have one puzzle piece left, that finishes the entire puzzle.
Right. So you just got to keep going.
Then that's what you need to be complete.
Yeah. And something else that they've done is establish the Microbiome Initiative to study how intestinal microbiota contribute to the onset and progression of IBD. So that's research that they say is helping to lead the way in precision medicine, which that's more targeted medication. So
instead of just attacking your entire body, I guess you could say,
they're gonna
not your entire body, but
but they can attack the idea is to find what's going to work for you and attack that instead of putting you through this process of trying everything getting worse. And it's like, so precision medicine, I'm very excited about. And then they created the IBD Chorus to develop a quality of care standard for IBD treatment to help improve patient quality of life. So that's important too. They're working across. I think that's incredible. They developed IBD Plexus, which is the largest IBD research database that unites clinicians, scientists, educators, industry partners, and patients to accelerate progress in research.
Wow.
And that's what I'm part of. So, so I recently joined, and again, this podcast has nothing to, the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has not endorsed us or
no.
And anyway, this is just us. But I
just like talking about them.
Yes, I recently joined IBD Plexus as a patient advisory committee, and I'm a caregiver, so I represent the caregivers, and I'm going to be working in this group as well, and I am so excited to do it. So I'll be doing that for the next 2 years. I joined the committee, so I will be part of IBD Plexus. Yeah, so that's exciting.
That's cool too.
I really want to help, and I feel like this is a way to actively help. But I'm thankful to the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation to have these opportunities. And so
if it wasn't for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, we wouldn't have these cool opportunities.
Not at all. And they're able to unite people from all over the United States, all over the, wherever they have their foundations, are able to unite all of us and put ideas together. And so I think that's
stronger, empower us.
Yeah. And then they launched the Pediatric Risk Stratification Study, which is a study of the largest group of pediatric patients in the history of Crohn's disease from their time of diagnosis. So the study has identified biomarkers that could predict disease course and severity in kids with Crohn's at the time of diagnosis. So that's cool. Pediatric is such I think, area that's lacking because so much is put into the adult world, whether it's with biologics, everything is for over 18. And so I think
it's so important for the adults, but
it is because it does help the kids.
Pediatric does need some
It needs its own attention too. And so I think that is incredible that the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation is considering kids. And so that's pretty neat. Something else they've done, they work with federal legislators. They established the first ever Congressional Crohn's and Colitis Caucus with more than 60 members of Congress who work to advance policies that help patients. That's really amazing too, because we need that help in getting things established to protect you guys and help you guys get the medication, the treatments, everything you need, all your rights met. They received the designation by the U.S. Senate for the Crohn's and Colitis Awareness Week, which is December 1st through the 7th annually. Super important for raising awareness and making that making it a statement to say it's important to us in the United States. This is very important. These people matter. And so December 1st through 7th. And if you didn't know, now you guys know. So
now you know.
Yeah, start posting.
The more you know.
That is when you guys want to share and get the word out. And they've also organized the participation of more than 100 IBD advocates at their annual day on the Hill. And so that's pretty cool. They have more than 250 volunteer-led support groups across the country.
Wow.
Yeah, which is extremely important. Volunteers are so important. All of our local chapters are incredible too. We have, they are working so hard all over the U.S. And so it's pretty phenomenal as well. And then there's a few more, but I just want to finish off with one last one because it's fitting. Because
it's fitting for the summer.
You're going to be starting, I think Camp Oasis starts next week. Yeah. So
that's cool because the week that Camp Oasis starts is the last week of my writing.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, you're almost done. So,
yay.
Almost there. But they have brought 1,100 campers to attend Camp Oasis annually. And so it's a summer camp for kids with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. And they have 12 sites nationwide. It's also virtual.
Yeah, I do virtual. Yeah, it's really good too. They're really inclusive.
Yeah, I think it was COVID brought that about. And again, if there was a silver lining with that awful time, it was the virtual Camp Oasis, because I think a lot of kids want to be a part of that or meet other kids. And sometimes you're not in a place where you are healthy enough to go, or for whatever reasons, it's not a great idea for you to go, or you just don't want to. Maybe you would prefer to just do the virtual camp. Yeah. So, and since you've attended, it's already changed. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it's like this year.
Yeah.
So
not last year, but the first year I went, they had a magician for the last day.
Yeah.
He was really good. I forget his name, but he was really good.
And that was pretty cool too. They had, they brought in a chef one time. They brought in someone who taught exercises. They had people who drew caricatures.
Yeah, they had a caricature. It was cool.
They have groups where you can do like camp activities.
Yeah, they send you a little box.
Yeah, so you get all your materials, and so you can attend camp. You go to these breakout groups, and you
don't have to buy anything yourself. They just get sipped to. Once again, we're not being sponsored by Camp.
No, none of it is. It's just we are such fans of everything they do and everything they've helped us with and the role they've played in our lives. We're extremely thankful, and we try to help fundraise for them however we can, because it is so important. Like, as you can see, you have to be willing to realize that what you're doing today may not affect tomorrow, literally. No. Like, that may not make the difference. But if they didn't start back in the 60s,
it wouldn't have helped as many people.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
So thankful.
Yeah. So anyways, kind of an interesting thing. So that's it for
today's podcast.
Yeah. So you guys can go to our social media at Team IB Determined and the Reggie Project. Give us a follow on both of those, see what we're doing. And you can listen to us. We have our link where it shows all the different places. Our Buzzsprout link we'll put in there.
Buzzsprout.
Yeah, you guys can see all the different places where you can follow us. Some of the major ones you can listen are Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts.
There's other little ones there too.
Yeah, there are. And there might be one you are listening to us on right now. So thank you for listening on there. And then there's YouTube also.
YouTube podcasts. And then there are YouTube videos. And if you do want to watch us and listen to us, you can go to YouTube and watch us on the normal videos. Yep. But if you are watching us, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to be notified every time we post a video, make sure to hit that bell icon.
Yep.
And always leave comments. We love getting your comments, and we read all of them.
Yeah, it is very helpful. So keep sending suggestions or things you'd like to hear us talk about. And
future podcasts.
Yeah, we want to make sure we're still talking about what's important to you. And
if we missed anything,
hopefully today was kind of a fun,
just a little entertaining one.
Yeah, a fun topic, because I thought it was an important one. We haven't really gone into most of us probably don't know when Crohn's was discovered until you probably listen to this and now you know a little bit more. So it makes you more informed and you can tell people. It'll make you a lot of fun at parties.
Yes.
So anyways, thank you for listening, everybody. And we'll be back next week.
Now, just remember that unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not.
Well said.
Thank
I
you.
like that. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.
Have a good rest of your summer break if you are on your summer break.
All right. See you guys next
See you
week.
guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We hope you will stick around, tune in, and reach out to us with your own journeys. We are excited to give you an inside view of what it takes to be a caregiver and what it's like to be a patient.
And most of all, we hope you'll maybe be able to apply something you hear on here that might help you in your own life. Sometimes life changes, and it's all about how you handle the journey.